Welcome to Horror Coast to Coast, where we review a horror movie from opposite sides of the continental US. I'm Brian from Massachusetts.
I'm Michelle from California. We're starting with The Exorcist, plural, released in 2023, not to be confused or, depending on the intent of the director, possibly to be confused with The Exorcist.
To be confused, let's just say be confused.
Definitely. And I think the first thing that I wanted to point out is the little summary of the movie when you look it up. So it basically says, when his child is possessed by an unrelenting evil, a father hires 3 expert exorcists to purge the demon, spelled Daemon, by the way,
Fancy.
and save his family. Save his family before it's too late. And I wrote, no, not even a little bit. That was the most misleading summary of anything I've ever seen. I was like, that's not even how the movie is presented in any way. It's like the father hiring the exorcist is completely an afterthought that's introduced like an hour into the film. So maybe not, I don't even know if it was that long, but yeah. So man, I had a lot of thoughts. And we talked about it before, and I also wanted to just mention it that this movie is what officially introduced me to the term mockbuster. I didn't know what that was before. I don't know, maybe it was just me being naive. I didn't realize that directors intentionally made similar movies along the same veins of super popular things to ride the coattails and just to get people kind of a gotcha moment of like, you thought you were seeing the popular one, but nope, now you got us.
So, did you know the name Asylum before we watched this?
I didn't know it was from the Asylum, but I had heard of that production company before.
So, what do you know about them?
I just associate them with the low, not necessarily low budget, but lesser known horror films that are on like the Roku channel or like Amazon. When you're really digging deep into Amazon, you'll find those like random horror movies. That's sort of what I associate when I think of the Asylum.
So I knew the term mockbuster essentially as long as I've known what Asylum is. They always went hand in hand to me. Like Asylum is the mockbuster company. And they also did a show on Sci-Fi called Z Nation, which previous to this was the only Asylum thing I'd ever watched to my knowledge. And I thought it was decent.
Okay.
Coincidentally, I also woke up after falling asleep with the TV on a couple days before we watched this, and Sharknado was halfway through, which was my first Sharknado experience.
Oh my God. I wrote that because I looked up the director. So the director of this movie is Jose Prendes, and he's Venezuelan, and he's got a whole bunch of movies here, which I thought was really interesting because he seems to snag some kind of big names, even though I can't really find a lot about him except for his association with Asylum and all these movies. But so he didn't direct Sharknado, but he directed Mega Shark, and apparently he wrote Megalodon: The Frenzy. So like Megalodon was its own separate thing written by a totally different person, and he came in with this sequel.
Isn't it Asylum movies?
I believe so. They're all lumped together. I mean, I might have double checked that. But then he has this movie called Monster Mash with Michael Madsen. And then, of course, he has this one with Doug Bradley. And then he's got Heretics, which is a huge, huge problem online because there's the Heretic movie with Hugh Grant, which was phenomenal. And then there's Heretics, and he snagged Eric Roberts for that. And I didn't watch it.
Was that also like last year?
Yes. And there's a really funny Reddit thread where people are essentially asking, hey, has anyone seen this movie, Heretics? And a bunch of people are like, yes, it was so good. Hugh Grant was amazing. And all the comments are like, wrong film, not this one. Nope, not even close.
Mission success.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're obviously good at this mockbuster thing if they're getting people. They're fooling everyone. They fooled me. I mean,
I didn't know it actually worked because I always heard like one of the most famous ones I hear about is Transmorphers from Asylum. Like, come on, everyone knows what Transformers is. No one's fucking falling for Transmorphers thinking it's a legit movie.
I had not heard of that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the power to confuse, I guess, can be an economic tool. I don't know. I think that seems to be the crux of what their goal is, right? Just make as much money as can off of people's mistakes. But I also, like I said, we talked about earlier, I I also learned about twin movies, which I thought was really interesting, where you have the two reputable companies release films that just happen to have similar storylines or similar themes or whatever. And the example that we talked about was like Ants and A Bug's Life. And I know there's actually a really history behind that. It had to do with one of the co-owners of DreamWorks being fired and going on to create. No, it was the opposite. Sorry, the guy from Pixar was fired and went on to create DreamWorks and took some of the idea for A Bug's Life and then used it to create Ants. And there was this huge war with Jeffrey something and Steve Jobs and all this other nonsense.
Was it the first DreamWorks movie?
I don't think so. I think it might have been Shrek.
No, Shrek was way later.
Okay, then I gotta.
'Cause I watched both of those movies growing up.
Yeah, I gotta look that up then because it might have. Maybe it was Ants. I don't know. I didn't think it was. Yeah. So okay, lesson learned. Maybe we actively try to stay away from the mockumentaries or asylum movies because I really don't like having the rug pulled from under me, and I also don't like kind of not to bury the lead here or put the cart before the horse or whatever. I don't particularly like a movie where I get to the end and I think, oh, that was a waste of my time. You know?
Yeah. So, what caused you to put this on the list? Was this just something you saw on Prime and thought that sounded interesting?
Yeah, I basically went through all of my subscription services, looked in their horror section, and was just scrolling through ones that I hadn't seen, had heard of, and then anything that just sort of jumped out at me. And so I was like, The Exorcists. Maybe part of me was pulled in by the hook, right? And I just thought, can't be that.
Yeah, my red flags were going off when I saw that Asylum title card.
Yeah, I don't even know. I might have just glossed over that. However, side note, in looking up all of these movies, I ended up discovering a movie called Don't Look at the Demon from 2022, and it stars Fiona Dourif, who, is Brad Dourif's daughter. And apparently it's really good. It's got like 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I think we should definitely look into that at some point. But yeah, Asylum, time and place, but maybe not necessarily for the podcast.
Yeah, maybe this is our one and only Asylum film.
Yeah. And then speaking of ratings, I did write down this has got 17% on Rotten Tomatoes, 3.2 out of 10 on IMDb. So we're kind of whatever. Lesson learned.
Maybe we vet the films a little more.
Yes, for sure. But yeah, I mean, what did you have for your notes?
Well, I want to start by saying there's exactly one thing I like about this movie. You know what it might be?
Is it Doug Bradley?
It's Doug Bradley. He is so perfectly suited for this role that I had to look up. I'm like, there's no way this is his first horror priest role. And it's not. So there's like 5 credits where he plays some kind of horror clergyman. And I'm most interested in Exorcismus from 2010 because I thought he is just made to play this kind of character. And he was solo carrying this entire film.
Oh,
So
yes.
I'd be interested in seeing him play basically the same character in a movie that isn't terrible.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember, but like 2 years ago, we reviewed the movie Ava's Possessions, and I said in my
Yes.
review, basically, my least favorite subgenre of horror is what I call The Exorcist, but worse.
Yeah.
And boy, is this movie The Exorcist, but worse.
So I had this similar note about Doug Bradley, except I chalked it up to I thought it was a poor use of Doug Bradley. But the way you put it, I kind of think, okay, well, actually, maybe it was a good use of Doug Bradley because, he gave a little bit more weight to the movie. But I think when I think of like a poor use of someone, it's more like, why did you bother putting them in this movie? Because they're better than this.
But I'm gonna be 100%. If Doug Bradley wasn't in this movie, I was gonna text you and tell you I couldn't finish it. He was the only reason I made it to the end.
Okay. I mean, that's fair.
There also might be a bit of like an acting optical illusion going on here because when you're surrounded by these performances and you give a serviceable performance, you're gonna look way better.
I mean, that's a possibility. But no, I thought I honestly didn't have a complaint about him except for the placement of him. I mean, I like I said,
That he's in this at all.
yeah, my version of he's been wasted is that he's in this at all, which is not entirely accurate in terms of how that expression is used, but that was what I was thinking. But I agree with you. I think he was great and I think he did carry a lot of it. And yeah, I was pretty nonplussed with that girl with the doctor. I also really didn't like the sound of her voice. It was like unnecessarily high pitched at times, but then not high pitched at other times. So I don't know. It was very weird. And then the nun, I swear I've seen this lady somewhere before, but it turns out I haven't. I know I've seen her, but I looked her up. Her name is Denise Duff, and I have not seen her anywhere else. I looked at her profile, at all the movies she's been in. There's no reason I recognize this lady. She just looked like someone that I had seen before. So, I mean,
Maybe she's the mockbuster equivalent of a known actor.
yeah, maybe she had this kind of Jessica Lange aspect to her.
Yeah, got a bit of that for
Yeah,
sure.
she definitely had like a Jessica Lange kind of vibe. So maybe that's what I was getting at. Like, oh, I recognize her, but really, I only recognize her aura. But yeah, oh, the dad. Did it strike you that he was like strangely young? Because in the first scene, I was like, this kid.
Okay, wait. Were those teenagers? The B plot characters?
Yeah. Oh, were they connected to the other side of the story at all? No.
I'm asking if they were teenagers because they all looked
Oh,
like they were in their 30s, but they
yeah.
acted like 14-year-olds.
So I think that they were at the very latest early college kids. But I think the idea is that they were teenagers. Um, and I hated every minute of that. I thought like I really don't think this is compelling enough for you to do this roundabout connection to the original plot, which isn't even really a connection. They're just bodies, right? They were just there to be bodies so that the main characters could have some obstacles. And I just didn't like that because it just felt like, why are we going through this motion? Why didn't you could have just had the gosh, what are those things called? The crypts. You could have just had the crypts open and dead people could come out. Why bother bringing them in?
Do you want to know my suspicion?
Sure.
That they filmed this movie and then realized it was not a feature-length film, and then they added those kids in separately in order to, pad out the movie.
Huh.
Because the whole time I'm like, "This doesn't even feel like the same movie." Like, the tone was completely different, and it was not tied in at all until the very end
Right.
when they're just like, zombie jump scare people at Doug Bradley, and I think they probably just brought him back in. They're like, "We gotta tie this in somehow, or it's like obvious that it's not connected at all."
Huh.
It was like so disconnected until the very end. And it's like you have to tie it into the narrative somehow. You can't have these characters have no connection to the other characters,
Right.
but they don't.
And they didn't even make it clear that the dad owned I mean, they stated that the dad owned the property, but they didn't make it clear that he was, like a funeral home director or something, like or the crypt keeper, I guess? I don't know what he was. They didn't make that clear at all, and that they were going through the house, but the house was attached to the rest of
The monastery or whatever.
yeah. So I thought that was really unwise. I was not a fan of that.
But the reason I started this aside was to mention that, yeah, I thought the dad was gonna be like their classmate or something. I thought that was gonna be the connection that they were like, because I thought they were the same age, like the dad and the teenagers looked the same age.
Yeah, I 100% thought when that dad came on the screen that he was like a brother or something, because, I mean, he was like 25 and this girl was be 14. So I was like, there's no way.
like arguably younger than the teenagers.
Yeah, there's no way this is the dad. And then turns out he's the dad. It was very strange. And then his character, not well used, not well thought out. I mean, this is probably one of the worst possession stories I've ever heard, where the demon can just randomly start possessing bystanders through the air. And then the actual explanation is very unclear about whether, I mean, at one point, one of the non-possessed characters is like, "What's happened to you?" And someone says, "Oh, she's accepted her savior," whatever, right? And it's like, I don't get it. So is this person consenting to be possessed? Did she do some sort of ritual that we didn't know about? Like, what's going on? But it seems like he's really just possessing anybody. No one, there's no process. Um there's no like hazing ritual of like possession. He's just doing whatever he wants. There's no explanation for it. It was very frustrating to watch.
Yeah. And the other part about that B plot feeling like a separate movie is that it also feels like a movie where half of it is missing because there's like no context for anything they're doing other than like, let's play spooky Ouija board games. It's like we just enter halfway into this movie, like we flip the channel.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So I wanted to point out one thing that stood out to me in terms of cinematography because I'm not a person who notices cinematography easily. There's a shot of I think it's Doug Bradley and, oh, the Cuban priest. Forgot about him. He was quite forgettable, actually, even though there's nothing that wrong with him. So it's Doug Bradley, the Cuban priest, and the doctor are running through the crypt, but it's a bird's eye view aerial shot of them, and it's panning down this narrow hallway, and their conversation is rendered as a voiceover. But it's an all I mean, I know that a lot of times movies are recorded and then the actors go in and they put voiceovers where they were talking to make it sound better, whatever. The majority of that is seamless. This was not seamless. This was like we're watching like a nature documentary of people walking down a hallway with the narrator telling us what their plans are. And I was like, this is so awkward. I can tell this is a voiceover. These characters do not seem in sync with the sound at all.
Yep.
It was so just took me out of the
That is one reason I love watching these movies is because you don't notice things being done well.
Mhm.
You notice when they're done badly, and then you're like, "Oh yeah, all those movies I've been watching where I didn't notice the bad ADR or the bad staging." It's like that's because it was good.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a couple of movies where I have been e extremely blown away by something that I really don't notice, but that doesn't happen nearly as much as when it's bad. And this was I saw this shot and I almost started laughing while I was watching it because I was like, is this really happening? Am I supposed to be following along this conversation?" And it was also a rushed conversation of, "So what do we do? Where do we go? Should we turn here? Should we turn" It was just like so cartoon.
The conversations were so
Oh,
awkward.
yeah.
And they all take turns doing their little trauma dump and giving them monologue, and like the other two
The
characters
Baptist.
just can't act at all. It's so like painful. It's like I want to escape because there's nothing going on like visually, and there's nothing going on acting wise. And then the actual narrative that they're giving is the most like generic, obvious backstory that you would expect in this movie. That was my least favorite part by
The
far.
backstory.
Yeah, where they each give their little backstory and it's so like obvious and formulaic.
So my least favorite part is the twist with the fucking psychiatrist. Because the beginning of the movie, that nurse just shows up to her like she's doing this chess match where she's having a real conversation with this like kid. It sets her up in this very, very like unrelated background. And then she gives her a folder and all of a sudden it's like jaw drop. and okay, I'll agree to go with you. We're never told what she sees to convince her to go. And what did this nurse know about? I mean, well, okay, so we find out that the nurse is like, one of the demon's concubines or whatever. Oh, and so obviously she had what she needed to get this, to put in the information and to give her the information to have her go. But we're never told what it is that convinces her. And then she shows up and it's like, I'm not crazy. Stop calling me crazy. How do you go from like bullying your way through everything? Like, that's not possible. That's not reasonable. Oh my God, this girl, she's strapped and we need to give her fluids and we need to do this. Like, she's the rational, quantitative, qualitative scientist all the way through, and then is suddenly, boop, breaking point. I'm not crazy. Don't call me crazy. It's like, I can't. It was just too much. And that actress could not carry the weight of what the role was supposed to be. Not even a little bit. I was like, this is too much for her. You're giving her too big of an assignment right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Because this twist reveal of this background childhood trauma this isn't it. Like,
Yeah.
maybe could be cool. Baby's an interesting idea, but not here. Not here, not now, not with this lady.
Yeah.
It was
And
bad.
you're not wrong, but just invoking the name of Scully kind of offended me. Like,
Oh,
yeah, she is kind of playing that role, but Scully is so on another level of that type of character. And it's like, it's not even the Dollar Tree version of the Great Value version of Scully in that regard.
no, I get it. I mean, that's just my generic, she's a hyper skeptic about everything, and there doesn't seem to be a real basis for it, especially since she's had this experience that is directly connected to it, kinda, and then never can figure out why this person is asking for her specifically. Doesn't say like, "Hmm, this is something that I have deep trauma with and could be triggering for me. So maybe I'm not the one. Maybe find another psychiatrist to do this." Even though, at the end of the day, she's convinced herself that it didn't happen, that's still concrete knowledge in her memory that this is a thing that she believed herself to have gone through at one point. So when it comes up again, why are you running to that? Why are you even curious about that? I would be like, honestly, no, this is a potential trigger for me. And I've done a lot of personal work not to be pulled in by this belief. So I'm not participating in this. I feel like that's what any normal person would do, especially someone who is like educated.
Well, nothing about her character felt normal or authentic at all. Like, I don't know how much of it was the flat acting and how much of it was a bad script, but she was like one of the least convincing characters I've encountered in some time.
Yeah. Did we love the the fake holy water versus the real holy water?
Oh, yeah, classic.
Very funny.
And I like how he's like, keep that. You never know when you'll need holy water. But it gives her both and they look exactly the same. It's like, surely she wouldn't mix those up.
Yeah. And she's like, they must be vinegar. It must be salt. Or like, how
Yeah, like, what are
caustic,
you talking
how
about?
caustic
Like,
is your salt? Oh my God.
yeah,
To melt it or
have you ever gone in the ocean? It's not exactly it.
yeah, kind of crazy.
You want to know another one of my favorite baffling moments is at the end with the defibrillator and Doug Bradley's character is like, she's very weak. She can't take this after she's flatlined. Like, what are you talking about? She can't take this. She's
She's
dead.
dead. No, what's wrong with you? Yeah, that was a weird thing for me too. Because the one thing that I didn't like, this was like a mental Olympic thing for me where I was like, okay, you have a heart condition that comes on suddenly, but is relieved by these nitroglycerin tablets. Why would you keep them in your suitcase out of reach? And then you're constantly crabbing your chest and yelling for people to get your pills. maybe this is a thing older people really do. I don't know. But
Yeah, I wouldn't be
like,
that surprised.
like why was why would you have them in your pocket? If it was me, I know exactly what I would do. I have pills that I take, and I have little contact cases that I pour extra pills in, and I stuff them in my purses. And so if I leave the house and I'm like, "Oh, I forgot to take my pills this morning," boom, it's in a contact case in my bag. They're just everywhere. I mean, it's the same thing about like tampons. I stick them everywhere in my cup holders and whatever. Never known you need stuff. And for nitroglycerin pill, I'd have them everywhere.
The thing about Doug Bradley's character in this is he gives a great performance and he has this like air of a like intelligent and highly authoritative figure, but then the script kind of just writes him as an idiot. So he's always doing and saying stupid things, but he has like gravitas while he's doing it. And it's really the most interesting thing about the movie to me.
Well, and you know what is funny? I thought of when I watched when I was thinking about his role, he probably would have been just as good in that Russell Crowe role where he was
Oh, he would have been better, I think.
yeah,
I was actually thinking, like, how did Russell Crowe get two high profile exorcism movies in like the last year and Doug Bradley got stuck with this shit? That's so not fair.
yeah, I actually liked Russell Crowe in that movie,
Oh, yeah, he
but
was
I'm
good,
thinking,
but
yeah, I think Doug Bradley would have been great. What was the other priest role he was in?
um, can't remember. The one we watched was The Pope's Exorcist, right?
Yes, that's the one. And then the other Russell Crowe movie has a similar title.
Yeah, it's like The
Yeah.
Exorcism or
Yeah, it's like
something.
the yeah. I can't think of it, but I remember thinking, "This movie isn't that great," but
Yeah,
Russell Crowe acted the shit out of this role.
but it was still better than this.
I was actually thinking about that movie a lot while I was watching this because I remember the kid from that movie being so over the top and outrageous, and the girl in this was actually pretty good. The child actor. She didn't really, she didn't really do much, but it wasn't over the top, it was subtle, it was believable, it was
Like when she was possessed,
yeah, I didn't think it was, all that memorable.
I was getting scary movie vibes. I thought it was pretty laughably bad.
Meh, I don't know, it didn't stand out to me that much. I was like I said, I was thinking about the Pope's Exorcist so much that I remember the kid, and the kid was horrible. So, in this, I'm thinking, "She was fine, whatever, give her some, white sclera contacts and call it a day."
Well, the effects on it were pretty terrible too.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
I mean, to be expected.
all the same, right? She had the same makeup as the rest of the demons.
But one of the reasons why I just do not like this genre is because no one ever comes close to matching Reagan from The Exorcist. Like, she blows every other possessed character out of the water. They nailed it so hard with like the first exorcism movie ever, basically, that for me, it basically ruined the genre.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people feel that way. I know The Heretic is supposed to be, the worst of the worst, and I think I read something saying we just keep trying to outdo The Heretic in terms of how bad things are, in terms of how bad this genre is. Um, did you ever watch that show, The Exorcist, that was on Fox? It only ran for 2 seasons.
No, I think, wasn't that the one people said was really good?
Yes, it was really good, and it got canceled after 2 seasons, I believe. Maybe 1, I don't remember. But, um but it was so good. It was so good. It was really well done, and I was really impressed by the fact that the season 2 possession was an adult male. It was, John Cho, actually, and yeah, it was John Cho, and I was impressed because my one gripe about exorcisms as a genre is that the victims are always women or children. Most of the time, it's a young girl.
Pretty historically accurate, isn't
What
it?
do you mean in terms of victims?
Yeah, weren't exorcism cases historically mostly like women and young girls?
Well, yes, no, and I get that. But I just feel like it's too much of a comment on how society views victimhood. And it's a clear message that women are weak. It's a clear message that women are weak willed and that a man would be able to fend off the devil, right? And so I always hated that message. And so when they had this possession of an adult man, I was like, this is a nice take. This is a refreshing take. And there's all this backstory about the church being corrupt. And it was just it was a new story and it was interesting. And I don't know, maybe the Vatican shut it down or something. 'Cause it got cut after 2 seasons and it was really good. So all is not necessarily lost in this genre because, you know, oh, and then also, what's her name? A League of Their Own. Why can't I think? Gina Davis. Gina Davis played an adult Reagan. Reagan. Gina Davis plays an adult Reagan in the show. And so the priest, who's the main character, at some point goes to talk to Reagan because of, her experiences and whatever. And Gina Davis is Reagan. But she's changed her name. And so for the first like 4 or 5 episodes, you have no idea who she is. Well, you know who she is. She's the character she's portraying. And then halfway through, they're like, oh, wait a minute, you're Reagan. And so it's like, whoa, what this?
Way to spoil the twist for me.
You're not going to watch it. I don't even know where to find it. I mean, you'd have to find it. But anyway, it's very good. And yeah, oops, I guess I spoiled it for anyone else who hasn't seen it. Yikes. Good thing our millions and millions of viewers.
We can put a disclaimer in the front.
Yeah, I was also thinking that probably because I want to talk about endings, right? And the ending here was ho-hum, so who cares? But, in general, I think I'd love to be able to talk about the endings and go over whether or not something had the ending it deserved or came full circle or not. I love a story that comes full circle. I think that's so clever. This did not, and it was not. But I don't know. Do you want to add anything?
Maybe in future episodes, we can have a non-spoiler segment before we move on to the spoiler segment. There's not too much else I have to say about this movie. I didn't like it. I like Doug Bradley's
Yeah.
aura, and that's literally it, other than like enjoying little moments that were just so cheesy and absurd. The ending, like when they're basically doing the whole like spooky dead-eye jump scare section, fairly amusing for what it was. I mean, it wasn't good, but I was a lot more entertained than when they were monologuing.
Yeah, it's true. And I actually did like that one bit of lore that they added where if the demon possesses a priest and the priest dies, the demon is exiled forever.
Glad that they stole from
I was going to
something.
say, I think that is the logical conclusion to be drawn from The Exorcist.
I've gotten vibes of that kind of thing before, I think. I don't think they came up with that.
Okay.
Of course, they probably didn't come up with
Much of
almost
it.
anything in this movie. I'm sure it's a greatest hits of Exorcist trope.
Yeah. Oh my God. I read a book. I'll tell you about it later. Anyway, so you didn't put a rating on the spreadsheet, but I will tell you, I initially put 2 stars, presumably out of 5. And I am, after our conversation, downgrading it to 1.
Yeah, I think 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 doesn't really make a difference to me. I'm giving it a 1.
Yeah, agree. I think I was being a little bit zealous because I felt like even a crappy movie gives you talking points, right? So so I sort of gave it credit for that. But now after our conversation has been exhausted, it no longer gets the credit. So 1 star.
Most of the things we found interesting to talk about this, I think, was just the broader context of the movie,
That's true.
mockbusters, and the culture it exists in. We didn't really talk that much about the plot because it was kind of just what you expected, other than a couple twists.
Yeah. Also, did you catch that it was a trap way before he was like, it's a trap? Because I'm like, that nurse is evil and she's gathering all of you up to kill you somehow or to possess you or something.
I pretty much called it when they're like, "No, it has to be you," to the psychologist. It's like, Why does it have to
Mhm.
be her? Like,
I
obviously,
That's never well, I was gonna say that's never explained, but it kind of is because the demon is like,
yeah, I mean, I think it's explained, but also the "it's a trap" moment, like, impossible not to think of Admiral Akbar in that moment. "It's a trap!"
I mean, he says it in the least Admiral Akbar way.
Yeah, but it's
So,
framed in such a that scene from Star Wars way that he's like, even though he was trying to avoid it, I'm sure consciously, I couldn't
yeah.
not think that this is the scene in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. And then I have to say my favorite quote of the whole movie. I do not remember the context, but at one point Doug Bradley says, "I am the shock and awe."
Oh, yeah, that was great.
Who wrote that? That's the most ridiculous thing to have it. I mean, did he even question that as his line? Did you say, "Is this really what you want me to say?" I am the shock and awe.
I
It was
mean,
so great.
he read the rest of the script and didn't turn it down, so he's probably just happy he had something fun to say.
You know, we don't know if he turned any of it down. I mean, it's possible he cut lines and was like, "This is just too silly for me." He he may have
You think
done a
so?
little better. Who knows?
You don't
I don't
think
know.
that he realized that the whole "she can't take it, she's weak" to someone who's flatlined was a little stupid?
Mm, yeah, okay. Well, can't catch you can't catch it all, but who knows? I like to think that maybe actors have a little bit of say in the creative direction. I mean, I know I've heard that a lot of them do, so I would think that you'd be like, that I'm not saying that." But anyway, okay, so our next film, let's consult our trusty spreadsheet, is Men from 2022.
Looking forward to it.
Is that a you pick or a me pick?
I believe that's a me pick.
Cool.
I've heard just like whisperings of this movie. I don't really know anything about it, but it seems interesting. And I've heard it's good, and I saw it was on Prime.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, that is great. Also, I watched this with my library subscription, by the way. I don't know if that is a thing you'd be interested in, but I have the Hoopla app, which is basically just an app you can add your library information, whatever library card you have. And if your library has a, if they have a store of online video access, you can use it. So yeah, this movie was available to me courtesy of the Sonoma County Public Library. But anyway, okay.
I watched it with ads, and honestly, I didn't mind having ad breaks for this movie.
Yeah, I paused it a few times to do some things for sure. I definitely would not have been upset if there were ads. Um, but anyway, you have any last remarks?
No, I think that'll do it for The
Yeah,
Exorcists.
that's a wrap on The Exorcist, where you absolutely have to emphasize the plural nature of the title.
Yeah, otherwise you're doing their work for them and advertising there's a different movie.
Yeah, no kidding. You want a mockbuster, you work for that, not me. Okay. All right. Okay, well that's a wrap on episode 1.